Hello, everybody. Welcome back once again to the Crew First Culture podcast. My name is Jeremy, and today, special guest Jacob Johnson I have with me. How you doing, Jacob?
I'm good, man. How are you doing this morning?
Doing good, doing good. So Jacob is and correct me if I'm wrong, Battalion Chief at Pearland. Is that
Pearland.
Okay, so
Yeah,
that was the question is how you pronounce that. There's so
right.
many Texas towns that you gotta be there to know how to pronounce it. So
Yeah, that's exactly it. A lot of people use pearl like the jewelry, but it's pear like the fruit.
gotcha.
Yes, sir.
Well, I appreciate you coming on with me today and look forward to the conversation.
Absolutely. Same here, man. I'm excited for the offer. I really thank you for the opportunity, and I look forward to what rabbit hole we can jump down.
Well, just go ahead and get into it, kind of give a little background and who you are, as much or as little as you want, and we'll get started.
Sure thing. So, I have a pretty dynamic story. I come from a different background totally. My whole entire family is farmers, school teachers, or barbers on both sides, mom and dad. So I grew up around that, and I grew up um, wanting to be something of a servant. I didn't know if it was going to be an ag teacher and go teach FFA, or if I was going to follow the path of being a fireman. When I was 15, I got into the Katy Volunteer Fire Department as a junior member, and I was basically a glorified water boy, right? So I'd go to the fires with them, hand out water, basically just do the rehab thing. But I got to train with them. I got a full set of gear. They would send me to Texas A&M to train with some other volunteer fire departments. They would put me through what they consider their rookie school every year until I hit 18. So that's what really started driving it home that this is what I wanted to do. At 18, I graduated high school, jumped straight into fire school. I had a good friend of mine and a mentor, Gary Tilton. He was the fire chief. He pulled some strings and got me into a fire school at Cy-Fair College where they had a wait list. And that jump started my career. By the time I was 20, I was full-time job, firefighter, EMT, and dating my now wife. So it all kind of just fell into it. From there, I really just started falling in love with the job, and I really started understanding, what it took to be a good fireman, and the training that it took and the dedication that it took to really learn and hone in on the craft. And that led me to Pearland Fire Department in 2007, where I was one of the original 18 full-timers ever hired in the history of the department. So they were making the transition from volunteer to full-time, and man, I was lucky, completely blessed to be able to jump in on that and help start that department. So, 13 and a half years later, here I am sitting as a battalion chief, as a proud member of the B shift. I know that a lot of people hate on the B shift out there, but I'm proud to be one. And man, we have grown that department from 18 full-timers to 160 in 13 years. And
Wow.
it is just absolutely incredible experience. Absolutely love it.
That's awesome. And so before we push record, I kind of told you maybe we'd start digging into some value driven type leadership stuff. But
Sure.
now that you said that, I think I want to go a different direction, and let's talk about some pride and ownership, because I mean, that's when I hear you tell that story, that's what I hear. That's
Yeah.
what I hear a lot of. And that's another topic that I'd love to talk about. So, tell me what it's like to be a part of, and it's funny, before I let you start here, I've always heard, well, you go buy a brand new truck and you'll take better care of that thing than any used vehicle you'll ever have. And I feel like, it's just a goofy saying, but that's kind of, do you kind of feel like that's how you are a part of you're part of the first class? It was brand new. So is it yours basically?
Absolutely. I absolutely feel that way. I guess you could say, get a little too passionate sometimes when I remind people around that place, like, hey, I started this thing with 17 other men. You know what I mean? You absolutely get that feeling like it is mine. You take that, right? Because when I look back at it, I left Katy Fire Department to go to Pearland Fire Department for $33,000 a year. You know what I mean? It was like a $4,000 raise. And for $33,000 a year, I had low pressure air packs. I had 1978 LaFrance, 1985 LaFrance. Our newest pumper was a 2006. We had a year model 2000 Quint. We had really terrible gear. Our quartermaster office was in the attic of a public works building. 2 of our stations were just barns, to house vehicles. They didn't have any dorms or offices barely a working toilet, So to look back and to know that as a fireman, I had to talk with vendors and I had to be the quartermaster or I had to be the training committee. I had to take steps to make that transition to incorporate volunteers and full-timers. And for the full-timers that didn't have a volunteer background, to understand that those volunteers are just as important as us and provide just as much to the city as us. And we have to make sure that everybody works well together and everybody's kept up to date on the current methods of firefighting. But along with that, we had to build fire stations. So, we started October 1st of 2007, and January 13th of 2008, we started reconstruction of Station 1 and Station 4 just to add showers and dorms. One of the stations, the captains were sharing the day room with the firemen, and that was the captain's office. And the secretary was in a closet and the fire chief was in another closet, all in the same station. So it's like when you would go to the bathroom and say, "Hey, chief," and you'd be talking to the fire chief of the fire department, we didn't have a headquarters. So it took every bit that we had and all of our knowledge and experience and man, a lot of mistakes. It took a lot of mistakes to build what we've built in order to get us going, to get up-to-date air packs and up-to-date equipment. And just the city we've worked for, man, is just, I can't speak good about them enough. I've told everybody, I don't know a fire department out there. I don't know a city out there that has bought 14 apparatus in 14 years and that has bought, 3 brand new stations all over $3 million plus a remodel of 2 stations. We just opened Station 8. We're building Station 4 right now, and we're planning to build Station 7. And in the middle of all that, we're building a brand new training center. It is ungodly amount of experience that we have all gained from working in this fire department. And that's why I have so much pride and ownership, because now the rookies that come in, they're making $60,000 a year and they're walking into good air packs and good equipment and good fire stations and a lot of motivated men and women to help teach them. And so they're really fortunate. And I want to make sure that they understand how fortunate they are, but they won't realize that until you share the history of the department and where we've come. And so it's important that we share that with them. They need to know the things that the fire department has gone through in order for them to fall in love with it even more.
Yeah, that's very impressive. That whole story is impressive. And trying to think when it was, it's several months back. I took a trip down with Justin of Woods Force Wintry, the door kits, to deliver a couple props to you guys, and just seeing that, I can't even remember. I guess it's your headquarters,
right? Yeah,
it's just big station, well organized on the inside. You would have never thought that 13, 14 years ago, there was nothing there.
Right.
It's impressive. Very impressive.
So that those Woods door kits, we just put those together and we just did our first training on them last week. Yeah. Absolutely phenomenal tool. And so that building where you went, our headquarters on veterans, that was actually the PD station that was built in the 70s.
Okay.
And so when PD built a brand new headquarters, they gave us that one. We remodeled it. And what I say by remodel, I mean like firemen going in there ripping up carpet and stuff to save money. We remodeled it. And then now that is our training center and headquarters where we have 2 training rooms plus the burn tower. And then now we're going to have another burn building they're constructing right now. And then where we keep fire marshal, code enforcement, everybody.
So do you still have a jail in there for people to get in trouble, or?
Yeah, that's funny you say that. We turned all the cells into offices, and that's where our logistics personnel are. That you go down this long brick hallway, and then there they are. And the Sally Port is where all of our gear is, and quartermaster room and stuff like that. So it's a cool story, man. It's a lot of cool history that we have there.
Yeah, that's awesome. And something really struck me as you're talking too, and it's just that, you talked about these new people coming on, they wouldn't know unless you told the story. And I think that is huge right there. And that goes across everything. It's that goes across the whole experience in general.
Right.
You got these firefighters that are 20-year, 25, 30-year firefighters that have seen and learned and done so much, but it is absolutely worthless and wasted if they do not transfer that down to the next and next and next groups.
Absolutely. Exactly. And that's why currently I'm working on typing up our history, because the volunteers did a phenomenal job from 1946 to 1996. Well, now, we're in 2021. This is our 75th year. So what happened between 96 and 2021?
Yeah.
A lot. I mean, a lot, and we have to type that down, and we have to give that. We do a good job communicating it, I think, so far, especially in our new hire. When they come through, they have to be at admin for 4 weeks, going through a little academy. And then the battalion chiefs have 3 hours with them. And what we do is we sit down and we tell them the history of the department. We tell them the ups and downs. We give them our expectations. But that's just a touch of it, and I make sure that I go around and I give them the full story, because if I don't do that, then nobody will ever know Pearland. They'll just know what they've experienced.
Yeah.
But when you retire, I want you to be able to look back, even if you weren't a part of it, but I want you to be able to look back and say, like, man, those guys in 1946 that started this thing in a coffee shop, like I have grown into this fire department, and this fire department has made my career, and it all started in a coffee shop, and that's how I look at it. Like, yeah, I came in 2007 and built the paid side of the fire department with 17 other fantastic men, but it really started in a coffee shop in 1946. And that's what we have to hone in on and understand, that we've come a long ways in 75 years, and we got to type it down and pass it on. Because if we don't, then it dies, like here, right? So my coffee cup, I got the Andy Frederick sticker, right? Yep. So every time someone asks me about Andy Fredericks, we're passing on everything he ever taught us, and his book and all of his knowledge. You pass on the YouTube videos of him speaking, and we're making him alive. We're keeping him alive. And and that's what history's about, man. That's what we have to do in every fire department across the job.
Yeah, that's something that I've really kind of gained a lot of, I'm trying to think of the right word to put it. It's a lot of passion, maybe a lot of just, it's just important to me. And that's feeling the pride of whatever if you're talking about yourself, you're talking about your crew, you're talking about your station, your department. And, nowadays I feel like the more I reach out and meet new people, and it's not just me and my crew and my department, I'm starting to learn that, that's not as well dispersed as you would think it would be. It's not a normal thing hardly anymore, it seems like, and that's sad. It's
very sad.
And you got these fire stations that don't look like fire stations, except they have a fire truck sitting outside of it. Mm-hmm. And then you look at the the FDNY stations that got pictures everywhere, and old tools and just stuff everywhere. And for some, I'm sure that just looks like a crowded mess, but for me, that's awesome. That's pride right there.
Absolutely.
And man, I just want that so bad, because I want to feel like I am a part of something that we are proud to be a part of. We are proud to put our stamp on.
That's right. And you have to be, right? I mean, like, this job was built on the foundations of others. This job was built from insurance companies being proud that they covered so many houses and going to those fires and putting them out, and having the handshake with the homeowner. So we have such a large, rich history that we have to pass it on. And that's why I focus so much when I teach my class, Mentoring the Young, because that is the most underrated and forgotten skill that we have in the fire service today, is the skill of leadership and the skill of mentoring. We have to be able to connect to these kids and teach them what this job is about and how proud it is, because we're starting to accumulate a lot of people on the job that are just 24-hour firemen or 48-hour firemen, right? Whatever shift schedule you work. And that's not what it's supposed to be. Yes, you're supposed to have a home life and a family. And I do. I mean, dude, I hunt, I fish. I mean, I have a fantastic family who really supports me. I mean, they're coming with me to Georgia this week, and it's my son's spring break, you know? So I have all that. But when you sit down at night and you have a moment, you're supposed to read a magazine or pick up a book and read that, or watch a training video, or go outside with your son like I did when we were cutting down some limbs, and I said, hey, this is how you work a saw. This is how you work an axe. This is how you do this. Just little things, you know, just pick up little things like that. We're supposed to be 365-day firemen, and there's just a lot of us that are starting to accumulate to where we're just 24 or 48-hour firemen, and that's not going to be good firemen. And they're definitely not going to get their job, and they're not going to pass on what they need to be passing on so that it stays alive and well.
Yeah. And that's something I've spoken on here really recently. I can't remember if it was this week or last week, that I'm just kind of fed up with the whole, you know, the older people griping about the newer classes coming on, the newer firefighters that, you know, they're lazy, they don't know how to do anything, they're unmotivated. Well, 9 times out of 10, those people that are griping are sitting in the recliner while they're doing it, you know, and not doing anything about it. It's like you are responsible for that person's career.
Mm-hmm.
You are responsible to get up, go teach them how to do it, go motivate them, and show them how this whole thing runs. And if you aren't the one to do it, who is?
Exactly.
Are they supposed to just come in and know what the heck they're doing and you know, just go at it?
Well, you see, it's like you read my article, man. I love it because you're going to get me fired up now because you're speaking my language. I have been saying that for well over a few years now, and it is simple, right? When we were rookies, all the old heads called us dumb. They did.
Yep.
I promise.
Yep.
They called us stupid. They said we weren't worth anything.
Yep.
But the difference was then they took us out and they drilled us until we couldn't drill anymore.
Yep.
You know? And nowadays we are the problem. You know, our own people, our own generation, our own tenure in the fire service, however you want to call it, we're the problem because you're right. 90% of those guys are sitting in the recliner saying, they're a millennial, they're dumb, they're stupid, they're not worth my time. Excuse me? You know what I mean? Like, raise your hand, bud. I bet you're a millennial yourself and you don't even know what you're talking about, you know? And I mean, anybody born from like 82 to 94 is a millennial. So you're probably the problem, you know? And I see less and less and less training and more and more bitching. But then when someone dies, you want to cry and say, oh, my brother, my brother. No, that's not how it works, right? They're your brother, they're your sister from day one, and you have to earn their respect and their trust, you know? And that's, I'm telling you, you're going to get me fired up. We're going to be here for 2 hours.
Let's go. Let's get fired up.
Because because it makes me mad because, you know, these rookies hit the station and they're being told you owe us, right?
Yeah.
We gave you a job. You owe us everything. Man, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
No, because they earned their spot, right? So they've passed a written test. They've passed the physical agility. They've passed a panel interview, a fire chief interview, a lie detector test. I mean, how much more do they need to owe? How much more do they need to prove to get that spot? No, they earned it. Now you owe them the opportunity to have a love affair with the job. And that's why I quote that, man. I put it on my coin. I put it on my social media posts that every kid is owed the opportunity to have a love affair with the job. And they are owed that from you, the senior man or the senior person on the crew, you know, and this nonsense of, you know, they're not worth your time, man. If they're not worth your time, then you're not worth having on the job, and you need to move on to something else.
Yeah.
Because with those new kids coming in, man, that's our future. That's somebody's child. That's somebody's husband, wife. That is somebody special to someone else, and we got to give them the fighting chance. You know, I say it all the time. I tell kids, hey, so when you come to work, I don't care about your ice cream and your cake. Like, yeah, it's important. It's a tradition, right? Go put it in the freezer, put the cake on the counter. But at the end of the day, if you die on your first day on the job at 6:05 in the morning, because we start shift at 6, I want to know that I can go to your family and I can say, hey, at 6:05 in the morning, we had shown him how to check off his air pack. We were showing him how to check off the pumper, and he made a fire, and this happened. But your kid, your wife, your husband, your son, whoever, right? They were doing their job to the best of their ability until this happened.
Yeah.
You don't want to tell them that you were dousing them with water and flour and chewing them out, or making sure that they bought the right ice cream. Yeah. No. You want to go out there and say they were doing everything they could, and that this is the job they signed up for, and they gave it their all, and some things you just can't prevent.
Yeah. Yeah, you talk about the brotherhood thing. I like to say that this is only a brotherhood if you treat each other like brothers.
That's
if the whole brother, and that kind of gets twisted because of women and all that, and so but it's family. You can't call this a family unless you treat everybody like family, and that's right. And you can't. I don't even think you deserve to use that term brotherhood or family if you are not acting in that way.
Exactly, dude. Yeah. You nailed it, man. I'm telling you, because that's the thing. And going back to Firefighter Deconstructed with Christy Warren, we talked about that a little bit, because I use the term fireman, right, and not firefighter or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, to me, I have a girl on my crew, Alicia Cross, on my old crew before I promoted. Most badass female fireman I've ever had the pleasure of working with. I put her up against any person on the job. She earned my respect. She's a fireman, she's a badass. And so, yeah, I know it gets twisted a little bit, but I treat them like sisters, and they treat me like brothers, and it's just the brotherhood. It's the job. Yeah. But getting to what you had just said, that's what's been bothering me here of late is, you get these guys that are, so-and-so is a piece of junk, or so-and-so is copying so-and-so, and they don't know what they're talking about and all that. And it really started bothering me, because I'm like, have you ever met this person? Or have you ever gone to this class? Or have you ever gone to that conference? Because you're passing judgment, based on what?
Yeah.
Because to me, if you're going to live the brotherhood, if you're going to, on this side, raise your hand and say brotherhood, and call everybody brother, and call everybody jam up and solid, then you can't go on this side and tear people down if you haven't sat with them, had a conversation, and drank a glass of Jameson with them. You got to have that relationship before you tear them down. People might copy people. They might. But until you know their intent, you can't tell them that they're wrong, and you can't tell them they're a piece of junk, and you can't bash them to others. You know what I mean? Yeah. You have to go and have that conversation and get to know them. Because to me, right now, if I had to start a conference, right, let's say Jacob Johnson wanted to run his own leadership conference. Well, I'm going to go to Chief Isaacson, and I'm going to go to Howard Reinwald, and I'm going to go to Nick Peppard, and I'm going to go to all these guys and say, how do I do it? How do I get it done? What are some positives and negatives? And I would hope that nobody would say like, oh, well, he's just copying them and he's a piece of junk.
Yeah.
Because you want to go to people that you look up to and get some mentoring on how to make these things happen, So I really wish that as a service that we could calm down on some of that bashing until we truly know the person. And don't get me wrong, there's some, in the words of Captain Ashley, there's some shitbags on the job. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But you don't know they're a shitbag until you have a conversation with them and drink some Jameson and figure out who they really are and what their intentions are.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking in kind of that personally, I had a situation this week. I'm dealing with some stuff right now that's very challenging for me. And at the same time, there's a lot of things going on inside that's like, I've been at this department for 19 years. Mm-hmm. I have done a lot, I feel like, for this department. I love this department. This is where I have worked the most of my life. And at the same time, I see some areas that need to get better, some holes that we need to work on. Mm-hmm. And trying to do, I don't know if you heard the leadership underground movement thing that I'm doing. I started that for my department. I hope that it helps others as well. But that's
Absolutely.
why I started it, because that's what we need so bad. And I just don't know how else to do it. But anyway, I put an email out the other day of kind of letting everybody know about it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was hard to it was hard to put an email out like that and not be sarcastic and passive aggressive and take shots.
Sure.
And so I tried my best to not be like that, but I'm sure there was still room for error to take it as so. And so, I've had a couple of people reach out to me like, man, you're really bashing so and so. And that's not, it wasn't my true intentions. And yes, I probably should have been more careful about it.
Right.
But I just hope that people see through whatever they're seeing, and really see that it's out of love. It's out of true passion for my department, because I want us to be better.
Exactly.
That's why I am so passionate about it. That's why I'm so irritated that we're not better and we're not doing something about it. And so that's just something that once whoever called me talked to me about it, it's like, yeah, now that I talked to you, I see that it just didn't read that way. And that, it sucks.
Yeah.
But I can't help it. I'm just, when I feel this way about something and I try to do good and try to fix it and it doesn't help, and it's only the next step of getting kind of irritated and just trying to figure out what the heck to do next.
Yeah, man, absolutely. But I mean, like, kudos to that guy who reached out to you, because it's very difficult to put into words your passion for anything, right? I mean, I don't care if you're passionate about football. It would be very difficult for me to type everything that I've told you so far about Pearland Fire Department,
Yeah.
without it coming out different than how I truly feel. And that's why I say, social media it's a double-edged sword. It's good and bad, because people take your words and they come up with their own narrative, or they come up with what they feel your own intentions are, and then that's what they share out, versus picking up the phone and calling you and getting to talk to you. And
Yeah.
and so, I mean, kudos to that guy for reaching out to you. But it is that if anybody feels guilty after you send an email like that, then they probably need to look at themselves first before they even talk to you. Because if you have guilt when you're reading an email of passion, or when you're reading an email of, hey, this is how we need to get better, or however it is that you put it, um, if your first thought is to bash somebody, or he's coming after me, well, then you're probably the one that has the problem. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're probably the one that needs to look at himself in the mirror, or herself in the mirror, and say, hey, uh, am I any of these things that he listed, or am I any of these things that he talked about? And if you are, then you need to fix it.
Yeah.
So, but I'm glad that the guy reached out to you, because now he can spread the good word for you, saying, no, I talked to Jeremy,
Yeah.
and this is
Yeah.
what he really means. And we got to understand, he's got 19 years, and we got to understand his love for this place. And we need to understand that he's just trying to make us better.
Yeah. I wanted to go back a little bit. You talked about, kind of the time frame of when we came around and kind of getting trashed by the older crowd, but then brought out to the bay and showed how to become a firefighter. And it's funny that you talked about that, because, and I wrote a note as soon as you said it, because I didn't want to forget this. We literally had a conversation exactly of that just this last week at my firehouse.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what we talked about is, back, 15, maybe even 10, 15, 20 years ago, that's the way it was. You got harassed, you got hazed pretty heavily.
Yep.
But you also got taught how to be a firefighter. And I
That's right.
feel like nowadays, we've dropped a lot of the hazing, obviously, probably some of it good,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
but there's, at least from what I see, there's not much of that anymore. It's more of just talking, cutting somebody down type stuff, which, okay,
Yes.
whatever. But at the same time, we've lowered a lot of that hazing. We've also lowered a lot of that mentoring and that teaching others. So it used to be like, oh, that guy, man, he gives me a hard time, but dang, he really takes care of me. I
That's
know
right.
that he's going to be there for me. Right now, it's like, okay, that guy gives me a hard time. He's just a jerk. And
Yep.
that's it. It's like that part of that whole process was what glued everything together. We knew that we were going to get some crap, but we also knew that we were part of a team and they were going to take care of us. And if that piece is missing, that's a huge piece to be missing.
Absolutely. It's detrimental. And man, you and I, we're drinking the same cup of tea, man. I love it. That is exactly what has happened. When we were hazed, yes, we were hazed hard. I'm talking about oil put on you. You're trying to take a shower and here comes 5 pounds of flour. I mean, whatever the case may be, right? But the difference is when they hazed you back then, they would hug your neck and say, "Hey, thanks for taking it in stride, kid."
Yes.
And then they would move on,
Yeah.
Now we're starting to build some of these kids that were never hazed, right? And some of these kids who consider themselves to be senior men, which they're not, like, hey, you got 5 years on the job. Congratulations. Literally my work boots are 12 years old, dude. Chill out. So you're starting to build this culture of asshole. And I don't like it. I'm seeing more and more of, I'm going to treat you like junk. I'm going to yell at you, scream at you, cuss you out, do whatever. And then I'm going to walk away and I'm not even going to hug your neck and I'm not going to teach you.
Yeah.
Back then when they would give me a hug and say, "Hey, thanks for taking it in stride," I said, okay, then I know that I'm earning my spot. Right. And then they would go out and train you. And when they would train you and you would do good, they would pound you. They'd say, "Hey man, you nailed that. Great job." Now it's more like, you're on your own and I'm just going to yell and scream at you until I feel that you've earned your spot. And then I'm going to treat you nice and treat you like a brother. Well, dude, I can tell you what, if I was a rookie today and I walked into that and all I got was yelling and cussing and no teaching, and then after a year, when you think I've done enough, you start being nice to me, I'm never going to trust you.
Yeah.
Ever. And I don't know where this little touch of culture is starting to come from. And it's service wide, right? Like I have some in my department. I know others have some in their department where it's just this, I'm going to treat you like crap until you somehow earn your spot, even though I'm not going to help you earn your spot. And then I'm going to be nice to you. And that's just not how it was, because the guys were always nice to me. They may have hazed me. They may have been hard on me. They may have trained the shit out of me, but they were always nice. And they always sat down at the table and they always talked through the day. We would eat dinner together. Yes, I cleaned all the dishes. Yes, I learned how to make coffee and tea. Yes, I did all the normal things, but they were always nice to me. And they always treated me like a human being. And that's where we've got to get back. When I sit down with members of my shift, I tell them, first off, before I do any other expectation, I just need a good human being. Because I can help you become a good fireman. I can pretty much teach you, among the talent we have on this shift, to be a good fireman. If you don't pick up what we're putting down, then, we have some other ways to help you. And some people just aren't meant for this job. Some people just don't cut it.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I can't change who you are as a person and your character. So I need you to come into work as a good human being and know that we'll support you and we'll get you where you need to be. And if you can be a good human being, then you won't have any issues on this shift, But if you're naturally a nasty person, then I don't need you,
Yeah, that's another note that I had down before we even started this, is because I've heard you say that before, and I truly feel the same way. For me, that is so much more important than experience. I would rather have a group of people that are brand new, fired up, ready to grow and learn every day, than a group of senior people that are content where they're at, complacent, don't want to do anything. I don't want that. I want that group of people that are hungry to learn. I don't care if they don't know anything. That's my job. Right. Mm-hmm. That's my job to teach them. So that's what I want. I want good people that want to have fun when they come to work. They want to do a good job. They want to grow. That's what I want.
Absolutely. That's the key. That's what we're looking for, is we're just looking for that hunger, and we want to feed them, and we got to feed them. Let's talk about all these groups that are coming up, right? So you have CF Tactics, been around for a long time. Who else is more fired up than Kurt Isaacson?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was just listening to a podcast the other day, the Grabs podcast, where they were talking about Ladder 12 coming in and making that grab, and he's way in the background. Clean calves don't make grabs. He's just so fired up, So, and he's still out there learning, and he's still out there teaching, and he's feeding the hungry. Let's talk about FD Tactics and Howard Reinwald and Kyle Romagus and Mo Davis and Clyde Gordon And I mean, the list goes on. They're still out there feeding the hungry. Vincent Dunn is still out there at 80 something years old, like I think 85, feeding the hungry. I just took a seminar from him the other day talking about a fire he made in the 70s. You know, my dad was like 10, you know? I mean, they're still out there feeding the hungry. And then this weekend, you know, it Bears of the Oath with Shane Bentley and Lee Humphreys and Sean Duffy. And I mean, just, God, dude, the list goes on and on and on. And it's like, those are the people that are still feeding the hungry. Those are good human beings. And not that you should copy them, and not that you want to be like them as far as who they are and what they do, but be like them as far as being a human being. You know, copy their passion. I am fired up about going to Bears of the Oath this weekend, because I've never met anybody there, but I have talked to them for months, and they have become some of my best friends. I mean, we talk every day, and the fact that they are out there and they're going to be feeding the hungry, and I get to be a part of that, man, I am jacked up, dude. I am ready to go, because I know at the end of the day that we're going to make an impression on the fire service, no different than how FD Tactics does and CF Tactics does, and North Florida Expo with Nick Pepper, how they do it. I'm jacked up, man. I'm ready to go, because we're gonna have a lot of good human beings, and we're gonna feed them.
Yeah, no, that's, you know, you talk about you don't want to copy them. I had a conversation with another, like you're talking about, just a text conversation with people that I've never met before, but people that we have just started building relationships through all of these platforms. But you know, talking about some things going on right now with my department, with his department, and you know, the question came up of, well, I just don't know what to do about it. And really it just came to mind is, this is what you're doing. This is what we do. The better fire service starts right here in this conversation, because it's these little groups of me and him, me and you and all the great people that will be at the conference this weekend. That's where we are going to grow, and we start just building off of that little by little. And, you know, this isn't competition. This isn't, you know, I'm getting more of this than you. We have got to get together. And, you know, the comment of don't copy somebody else, you know, I believe that. It's not about copying them. It's about absorbing the passion that they have, transferring it to yourself, and taking whatever message you have and applying that passion to it and passing it on. Because my message is completely different than anybody that you just named, but that doesn't make any of those messages, you know, less.
No,
they're all great.
Not. Yeah. And, you know, the more people you reach out to for advice, the more people, you know, like I was saying, if I wanted to start a conference, you know, who I would reach out to, what the ultimate compliment that is. Like, I respect you enough and your mission and what you're doing that I want advice on how to do it so I don't screw it up. You know, I mean, ultimate compliment for me, you know. I mean, I just can't speak well enough about feeding the hungry and getting good human beings involved and making the job better. And when you send people to conferences like that, they really get the taste of it and they get fired up. You know, that's why now I started this past year, I started selling challenge coins from my class, you know, do your damn job and mentoring the young. And I started going to these other classes, and I've taught several times, and I've only been paid one time. And every other paycheck, I've donated it to other causes, to other ventures, to whatever. As of recent, I've raised enough money between those coin sales and between teaching that now I'm sending my shift. I'm sending people from my shift to CF Tactics. I bought a 100 club pass through them, and I'm sending 5 of my guys to Water on the Fire, Command Officer Boot Camp, HROC, everything, because I want them to experience what good human beings are, and I want them to experience what a good conference is, and I want them to be able to leave the state of Texas and realize that their passion is nationwide. You just got to go out and find it, you know? And I think that they're going to come back from those conferences, and they're going to come back from those classes, and they're going to be so jacked up and so pumped up that they're going to spread that amongst the Pearland Fire Department, and it's only going to make us better in the end.
And I love hearing things like that. You know, obviously there are a lot of us that are very much into the conferences, into the online courses, going outside of your organization. But it's even better and even more powerful to hear somebody from the chief level above, and hearing them put emphasis and importance on getting outside, because that takes some humility. I mean, just being honest, you are one of the leaders of that organization. And by saying that you want people to go outside of your organization to learn is basically saying, I don't know it all. And for some reason, that's kind of a hard message to convey for some. Going outside is not just an open market to some departments. And so I really appreciate, that higher ups of departments kind of pushing for that. That's great to hear.
Yeah, and it leads to what some of the things that I've talked about in the past of humility and vulnerability are the two most missed aspects of leadership that are out there today. Yep. And for my department, we have a policy that says that if you're below the rank of battalion chief, they're not going to pay for you to go out of state.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, well then I'll just pay for it. I'll pay for the conference, and I give them $100 per diem, and then out of my own pocket, and then they cover their travel and room and board, and then they're able to attend these classes and get fired up, because at the end of the day, I don't know it all. Yeah. And at the end of the day, my passion and my love for the job, it'll only hit the ears so many times before the ears close. Yeah. Because it's just Jacob talking again. And Jacob's passionate. He's fired up. Jacob loves the job and all this. And they're just going to end up closing their ears off. Yeah. So if I can get them out and I can let them hear, my passion through somebody else's passion, right? And man, tenfold, they're going to bring it back, and it's going to flourish in our own fire department to where we can build something bigger and better than what we currently have.
Yeah. No, I think you're seriously handcuffing your department, your crew, whatever organization or part of the organization you're a part of, if you are not open to that, because you don't know it all. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you've done. There's somebody out there that you can learn from. There's somebody out there that your people can learn from. And so I've never understood that mentality, and it kind of makes me sad, because there is so much out there. And if you aren't somebody like us that has learned that it's vital to reach out and get that on your own, there's a lot of people that don't know anything about this stuff. They don't know about podcasts. They don't know about the importance of conferences or fools or any of these things. And without that knowledge, without the somebody telling them, hey, why don't you try this? This is a good way to get a little bit of extra. It just, you don't know.
You don't. And that's what policies of that. It's sometimes it tunnel visions your fire department, right? It tunnel visions your firemen, because they can't get outside the state, or if they can't afford it. The fire department doesn't support it or whatnot. And don't get me wrong, like, this is not, we should be doing this in Pearland, because I understand where we're going with it, and I understand that we're trying to change it. We have a great fire department, but I'll be the first to tell you, the first year that I went to FDIC, talk about open my eyes, right? Like, oh, holy shit. Like, there's a fire department outside of Pearland, and the amount of brotherhood that was there, and the amount of friendships that I made, and the amount of knowledge that I learned from going to classes. I mean, it was astronomical. And that's when it really hit me. Like, I've got to find a way to start getting these guys of my shift to get outside the state of Texas. We have great classes in the state of Texas, excellent classes. Yeah. But some of the best classes known to the fire service today are not in Texas, And so we got to get outside, and we got to start hitting these major conferences, these fools trainings, like at FDIC, they have the Fools Bash, where you get to meet, 25, 30, 40, 50 different chapters, and then you have the Firehouse Expo, and you have Firehouse World, and you have FDIC, and Fry, and it's just like the list goes on. We got to get out there. You got to know that the fire service really is nationwide, and it's not just right there in the 70 square miles of Pearland.
Yeah. Now, I wanted to go back a little bit because there's kind of a point that I wanted to make. We were talking about the absence of those solid senior mentors, and kind of what we felt like is as a whole in the fire service right now. And I didn't want to leave it as a problem. I want to, when we talk about problems, I want to talk about some solutions too. And as you were talking through that, talking about, not having that, put your arm around your shoulder and know that that person cares about you, not that they're just caring about, bashing you. It kind of helped me to turn the wheels of, so if that's the problem, then maybe the solution has to be me. I'm a station officer, you're a battalion chief. We're above those senior firefighter levels. If our senior firefighters aren't doing their job, then it's probably my job to start teaching them how to be senior firefighters. And maybe that's a weird way to say it.
No, you're exactly right.
But hey, if you're not doing what you need to be doing to teach these other people up, who's going to teach you how to do it? It's my job. Yep. It's me. And this is a Jocko extreme ownership thing. If something's not going right, then there's somewhere in the line that it's my fault. That's it. And so it's funny because it just kind of came to me as you were talking, but now that I think about it, that's exactly the problem. I have to start teaching my senior firefighters how to be senior firefighters.
Absolutely.
Give them, razz them, but teach them too. Go ahead.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you're nailing it, man. You got it. I mean, because, that's one thing that I didn't really have for a short time in my career, was somebody that I could really look up to. It's something now that I struggle with of, okay, now I'm a battalion chief, and who can I turn to get some mentoring, from my own department, because we all started together. So, we've all been through this together. So I sometimes have to reach out to some guys outside, and I got some really good friends that are district chiefs in the city of Houston, and I reach out to them a lot. They got 40 years on the job. Hey, I stumbled across this today. How would I handle it? But it is important. You are the fix. I'm the fix. For anybody who listens to this podcast today, if you were a senior man, a driver, a company officer, a district chief, battalion chief, whatever, you are the fix, right? I sit outside every single night of our shift. We work 48-96, right? 2 on, 4 off. I sit outside both nights and I smoke a cigar with the guys, and we have generalized conversation. Sometimes I bring them through the history of the department. Sometimes we talk about a call that they made. Sometimes we just talk, about fire-related stuff. And then there's times where I'll break one person off and I'll have a talk with that person one-on-one, and I'll say, hey, this is what I'm looking for out of you. This is what I need you to do. Here's some advice on how I need you to take the crew under your wing, right? When it's a rookie, I'll sit down with him and I'll buy him a cigar and I'll talk, him or her, and I'll talk one-on-one. Hey, tell me about your life. Tell me about your stories. How did you get here? What led you down the path of the fire service? And I share that with them, right? For me, my story. And then I'll grab that senior guy and I'll say, hey, make sure you go and talk to that rookie and get his story or her story and let them know yours, And I've seen over the last few years where guys are like, man, how did you know that about so-and-so? Well, I had a conversation.
You asked.
I did my job as a senior person in this fire department. I went and have a conversation with them. Yep. Oh, really? Yeah. So why don't you sit down and have a conversation with them? Because you can't teach them if you don't know them. Yep. You can't earn their trust if you don't know them. If all you do is say, I'm up here and you're down here, you're never going to accomplish anything. So you're exactly right, man. You are the fix. Company officer, battalion chief, the drivers, they are the fixes. They are the ones that are supposed to take those senior men and women and say, hey, you're not doing this and I need you to do this, and mentor them down that path.
What you just said is another one of these underground principles that I'm talking about, is building relationships, building trust, building respect. Absolutely. And sadly, I see a lot here. And I don't know that it's even a today problem. I think it's just sprinkled out through history of that mindset of when you get that promotion to an officer position, you have to separate yourself. You have
Right.
to, be above everybody. You have to just kind of stay in your office and let them do their job. I hate that. I hate that so much because of exactly what you just said. If I don't have a relationship built with my people, I have no respect built either way, back and forth. I have no trust built back and forth. And
That's right.
it's just a normal job if that's the case. And that's not what I'm doing. I'm not
No.
working a normal job. I'm working a job that I get to have a second family. I'm lucky enough to have a second family. And so I better treat it that way. Again, like we talked about earlier.
That's right. I mean, if you don't build that relationship, you just have coworkers.
Yep.
That you post on social media that they're your brothers and they're your sisters, but you don't have that relationship with them,
Yeah.
and you have to build it. It seems like it's a new thing, like everybody's like, oh, build relationships, right? Build the culture. Well, but that's what's been going on for 200 years.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what happened. I mean, you talk to old time firemen and they're like, yeah, we used to go to each other's houses on Sunday and barbecue, or we helped, Donnie build that shed, or we helped so-and-so do this, so those relationships have been the core goal of the fire service since its existence, since its inception, however you want to look at it. So why are we now just saying like, oh, this is the latest and greatest thing?
Yeah.
That's what I don't understand. Like, oh, you have to do this. No, it's a necessity. It is necessary to build that relationship, but don't think that it's something brand new. It's just something that you missed out on, or you didn't realize how important it was. And then now's the opportunity to take full advantage of it and build that relationship that you need. So you're not just a coworker.
Yeah. Yeah. We had a recent personnel change in my crew, and just the feel and the atmosphere after this change has been amazing. It has been a weight off of me. It's been a breath of fresh air. It's just nice to be a part of a crew that just is positive and wants to be a firefighter again.
That's
And
right.
we sat down last shift for dinner, and everybody was done eating, and 15 minutes went by, 30 minutes went by. I don't know how long we sat there. We sat there for a long time, just telling funny stories, making fun of each other, and that is what I realized I miss. When I first came on, I was at a big station. I can't remember how many people, probably 12 people. And that's how every dinner was. Every dinner was an hour and a half ordeal because of the stories and the
Yes.
friendship. And man, when it's not there, I think over time you start to just kind of forget it.
Right.
But when you go without it for a while and then you see it again, it's like, oh my gosh, this is why I love to be a firefighter.
Yes, absolutely. That kitchen table is, I mean, how many people have talked about the kitchen table first off, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But it really is the kitchen table and the front bumper. That is the two footholds of the culture that you're trying to build.
Yeah.
That right there is where you will solve true problems, right? They always say it'll solve all the world problems. No, I mean, I really believe that. Like, I
Yeah.
really think if we sat there long enough and they had enough coffee going and somebody cooking, like, we could solve a lot of stuff.
Oh yeah.
But it's what makes a crew, that
Yes.
moment, right?
Yeah.
All too often we try to eat and then the rookie goes and starts
Yeah.
the dishes and then everybody disperses, right? No,
Yeah.
man, like, let's sit down. Captain Arthur Asher, man, he said it the best. Not 3 weeks ago, I was talking with him at a class he did in Pearland, and it was when we sit down at the dinner table or when we hanging out in the bay, like, I mandate as the house captain, no cell phones.
Yeah.
I mean, how perfect is that, dude? Now you're able to really sit down and have those conversations and build that relationship, become a crew, build the culture that you want to build. It's
Yeah.
not just well, I got to sit and eat, right? And I've had that rule for a long time of you can be whatever diet you want to be, right? But when
Yeah.
we eat, you eat.
Yeah.
If you bring your own food, awesome. But when we eat, you eat, and we eat together. And I've seen on the cruise that I had, man, it has really done a lot of good because
Oh yeah.
I can tell by the mood of the table, like, something's not right, and I can say, okay, TV off, whatever, cell phones down, talk it out. What is going on? Because y'all are not the same today.
Yeah.
And we have hashed out a lot of problems right there at that kitchen table, man. It is a sacred, sacred place.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a big deal. And this is another thing that the atmosphere of this last year has it's put a freaking dent in, to be honest. You have departments that don't allow people to eat together anymore. You have departments that want you to space out, and it's just everything. And not to go into all that, but and I've said it several times here lately, this day and age is a very, very hard time to be a leader, because you are faced with so many problems that have to be dealt with. And at the same time, you have to solve those problems and deal with those problems, but you also have to be responsible for the morale, the attitude of the crew, the ability to get your job done as a crew. And that is a hard mix. That's a hard mix to settle out.
It is, and I mean, you bring a great point. It is very, very difficult to be an efficient and effective leader right now in today's job, but then that makes me think, why? Why is it so much harder today than it was 20 years ago or 30 years ago? And the only thing I can come up with is the fire service is getting younger, the lack of senior men or women around the house, and of those that are around the house, the lack of them doing their job and mentoring, right? So I think it's so hard to be a leader because we don't have those people that we're supposed to have to lean on to say, hey, I need you to take this crew under your wing and I need you to get this stuff doing. I need you to immerse yourself in these rookies.
Yeah.
So many people are so worried these days about bitching about their leader or bitching about their officer that they don't realize they're not doing their job. And they don't realize that they got 2 or 3 rookies on the crew or 1 rookie on the crew, whoever, that's really missing a golden opportunity to become what they want to be as a fireman because you're over here just talking, And I think that's why it's so difficult to be a leader, because with social media and with people that are complaining, they're ruining your last name for you before you ever have an opportunity to build it. And then they don't realize that by doing that, they're ruining that rookie's career. And maybe they're wrong, because they're going to get the title of, sir or ma'am talks a lot. And the rookie's not going to learn anything, and they may end up losing their job. And if we would get away from talking and we would get into immersing ourselves into that crew as senior people, right, then our job as leaders, I think, would go back to being a little bit easier and a little bit less challenging. And we'd be able to handle things like a pandemic really simple or really easily if those senior men and women did their job of just immersing themselves in that crew and those rookies and teaching them and mentoring them and taking a little bit of burden off of us.
Yeah. And I think to add on to that too is a huge piece, is just focusing on the positive.
Yep.
And this is something I have experienced firsthand myself, of the difference of when I have allowed the negative to control me, what my crew looks like, and when I have focused on the positive, what my crew looks like. And that is a big deal, because there is so much negative out there. I mean, you don't have to look at all to find some negative. There is something to be negative about if you want to find it.
Oh yeah.
And
absolutely.
you got to focus on whatever's positive. Okay, deal with the negative. If something's going on and it's irritating, it's hurtful, whatever, deal with it. Let's talk about it. Let's deal with it. And then let's get done and let's go have a good day. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, when you're that negative, having a dull knife in the fire station, complaining about it and putting it back in the drawer. I mean, that's how petty it can get, when you're that negative, like, oh, there's no sharp knives in this station. And then you just throw it back in the drawer with the sharpener sitting right there, Yeah, you're right, dude. And have you ever taken Ryan Pennington's class, aggressive positive or aggressively positive?
No, I've heard of it. I have not taken it.
Man, I've taken it 3 times. I love it. Absolutely love it. It's no PowerPoint. It's nothing. He's got a little black book and he goes, okay, tell me about your fire department. Let's write down the reasons you're a fireman. Why do you go to work every day? And people write down some of the most phenomenal things that you've ever heard. But then he'll ask a question, like, do you share that?
Yeah.
Do you tell other people that? Or do you hide that and then just go in and get into the negative attitude instead of trying to fix it? Yeah. And he talks about some of his own struggles. And man, I'm telling you right now, anybody who's listening, right, if you have an opportunity to go to Ryan Pennington's class about aggressively positive, I believe is the name, you got to go, because it's phenomenal. He teaches the Firehouse Expo, I think yearly he teaches that class, and man, it is phenomenal. It really gets you fired up to go back to work and start making a little change at a time.
Yeah. Definitely sounds like something I'd be interested in for sure.
Oh yes, absolutely.
So, I talked about starting off with some value-centered leadership. I like to call it the golden rule leadership. It is basically treat people like you want to be treated, lead people like you want to be led. You've already talked a little bit about some of that stuff. How do you feel the importance of that mentality? How important is it as a leader?
Well, it's very important, right? Your actions have to match your words. But at the same time, you have to remember, like, when you promote up, you should still be whoever you are, right? So Jacob Johnson is still Jacob Johnson. Okay. I'm a battalion chief, but I'm still Jacob, right? It doesn't mean, because I changed ranks, it doesn't mean that I have any certain stigma that I need to live up to. It doesn't mean that I have to change the type of person I am. I still have to be a good human being. And what I have to do is I have to go through my career as a pipeman or as a driver, as a company officer, and I'd say, okay, what are some things that I really enjoyed that my leaders did? And what are some things that I want to try to stay away from? And then I have to make sure that I use those and I put them in my terms or on my twist, right? Or use them and maybe directly, maybe just copycat, in order to keep my employees happy, and in order to keep my employees motivated for the job, to love the job. Because you're exactly right. If I go in and I start acting different, and I start treating different people differently than how I was treated. If I go in as a battalion chief and I lead and I treat people completely opposite of what I did as a lieutenant, you lose all respect. And in some cases, you may lose the trust. And if you lose the trust, and that's a hard thing to earn back.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something, even, I'm not a part of a huge organization, but even the size of my organization, I have seen that several times. I have seen the lazy driver that promotes to an officer, and all of a sudden they're fired up to push this and that. And okay, well, on one hand, I get some of it. Like myself, I've went through down times. I've went through times where I was not motivated to do anything. Now, obviously, I'm on the other end of that. I've grown and I've gained that passion back. So, okay, you can take some of it like that, but if it's just straight up, that's the type of person they were, and as soon as they get those bugles, they assert themselves, and that's a bad deal. And like you said, it's hard to come back from that.
It is. And then anything that you were ever known for doing good, previous to that, it gets erased.
Yeah.
And you can't do it. You can't be the guy that rides an ambulance and complains about riding the ambulance all the time, and then promote up and then tell your people don't complain about riding an ambulance. Like, everybody has to do their time on the ambulance, especially in Texas. We have a lot of departments that, run both. And so everybody has to do their time on the ambulance. And that job on the ambulance is just as important as the job on the fire truck. And those people need your help just as much. It's about 65% of our job. And we got to be good at it, because it's the fire service in general, and you can't be the guy that, I hate EMS and I don't do EMS. And then when you promote, you tell your people to have this wonderful attitude. You got to be the same person, man.
Yeah.
And if you're a person who doesn't like EMS or doesn't like the ambulance, then when you hear them complaining, just have to remind them, hey man, I wasn't a big fan of it either, but it's our job. Yep. And we have to do it, and we have to learn it, and we have to be good at it, because one day you're going to promote up and be in my position, and you're not going to want to bring that negativity amongst the crew, Yeah.
So I think that's a good rabbit hole to hit right here. We talk about, you use the example of the ambulance. So I am somebody that griped constantly about the ambulance. I get promoted. I am now an officer in charge of other people riding the ambulance. So when that comes up and when these people are griping, if I am truly if I am somebody who has truly changed, if I am truly seeing the error in my ways of the past, that is a good time to exactly what you said. Hey, I used to hate it as well. I used to be the worst about griping as well. But I want you to know right now, I am having to make up for that right now. And it is not a good road to be on.
Right,
I am
exactly.
digging myself out of a hole that I put myself in, and I don't want that for you. And I think that if you are truly changing for the good and dealing with your issues that you caused in the past, that's the route you got to go if you want to gain that back. And it's not
Absolutely.
going to be easy, but that's the way to do it.
No, and it circles back around to what we talked about when it talks about being vulnerable and having humility. Like, hey,
Yeah.
I know I set this example, but I'm here to tell you it was wrong.
Yeah.
And I need you to have a little bit better attitude so we can fix this overall for the department, for our shift, for the crew, however far that attitude exists, let's try to change it, right?
Yeah.
Let's try to get to the culture of loving the job and doing the job and all aspects of the job, and not just the culture of the cool shit, because I'll be the first to tell you, I love the fire department. I love going to fires. I love being a chief, but there's some pretty cool shit that happens on an ambulance too.
Yeah.
You get to save a lot of lives on that thing.
Yeah. You'll get a lot farther with what we just talked about, as opposed to,
I'm gonna go get some coffee.
hey, all right, go ahead. As opposed to, hey, stop griping. That's not, you don't have any choices of what we're doing. Well,
Right.
You used to gripe. Well, don't worry about what I used to do.
Yes, exactly.
That type of mentality is you're playing with dynamite right there. And so you got to be humble. You got to take responsibility for what you've done and try to fix it the best you can.
Absolutely. Because if you don't, then you're just passing on the culture that you don't want or that you say is unacceptable. Yeah. And it's something that if it's that kind of attitude, you don't want to pass it on. That's the stuff that you want to get rid of. You want to kill it. No different than let's quote old Kyle Ramagus here, right? Compartmentalize the fire and kill the fire. Well, you want to compartmentalize that attitude and that behavior. You want to kill it. So you're going to have to do everything you can to kill that attitude and that behavior.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, that's all of this. This is stuff. This is good stuff. I love talking about all this stuff, and I love talking about issues that are going on and trying to figure out solutions. Like I said earlier, I don't want to be somebody that just gets on here and gripes about what we are not doing good at and just leaving it at that. It's you got to talk about some solutions too. And
that's right.
I have really enjoyed learning from everybody I've had on here, because every conversation I've had, I've learned something. And it's truly amazing to be able to get on here and talk to people from Texas and California and New York, wherever, and learn from these people that I would have never met, in real life. So it's been a really cool deal.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, and that's what these things are meant to do, right? Is you and I are now building a relationship. Like I feel like I'm gonna be able to call you whenever and say, hey, how's it going? Anything you're dealing with? Same with me. Back to you. But at the same time, can you imagine? Like, let's use this to our advantage here. Can you imagine if podcast existed in the '90s with Andy Fredericks? I mean, can you imagine the bombs that dude would be dropping? Like, if he wouldn't have been murdered on 9/11, can you imagine the bombs would be dropping today? Yeah. Like, I mean, Andy was just at the brink. You know what I mean? Can you imagine how far he would have gone with his stuff, with his information, with his book? And it's like, that's the stuff that you have to use these podcasts. You got to take full advantage of the people that and get the message out there, man. Yeah. Like everybody says, especially bearers of the oath, this is how we spread the good news. This is how we do this right here. Yeah. We build these relationships. You put out this information. You have guys who are willing to talk about whatever, whenever, and you have guys who are willing to be vulnerable and have some humility and say, I screwed up, and here's how I screwed up, and here's how I fixed it, and this is what we got to do. We got to make the change.
No, I completely agree with you, man. And I am excited. I'm excited for the future, because I know that these platforms are going to keep building, keep uniting people together, and it's going to be a good thing. So it's exciting. Well,
Absolutely.
I really appreciate the conversation. Is there anything that you want to add or say before we wrap it up?
Yeah, so I got just a couple things that I want to say, but one is um, I designed, and this is just a little plug for Taylor's Tins and Bears of the Oath, but I
Yeah.
designed a Taylor's Tin. Here's a picture. I don't know if you can see it. If I can get it logged in.
It's yeah, you can see it a
Do
little
your
bit.
damn job. So
Yeah.
it's I made that 10. It's actually going to be 10 of the month next month for April.
Okay.
And we're trying to, all the proceeds are going to go to Bears of the Oath and try to get them up and going and or keep them up and going. And then with each purchase of that 10, you'll get one of my coins. Do your damn job. And then every kid's owed the opportunity to have a love affair with the job on the back. So with each purchase,
Perfect.
you'll get one of those. So, for anybody who wants to support a good cause and anybody who just wants to have a 10 to remind people when you're training to do their job, make sure you go to Taylor's Tins and get that next month. Yeah. But, to end it all, honestly, like one last message I have is if you say the word brotherhood, act like it. If you truly love the job, pass it on. We don't know how long we have, in this life. And we don't know how long we're going to have on this job, right? When God clicks your ticket, that's it. There's no stopping it. And it doesn't mean death. It could mean that, but it might mean a career-ending injury. It might mean, a devastation that drives you to leave the job. It might mean a career-ending mental injury of maybe PTSD or something of that nature that makes you retire or resign or get away from it.
Yeah.
I had a good friend of mine get trapped in a fire years ago, and he quit the fire service because of it. And, when you have things like that happen, I want you to think to yourself when you lay down at night, have I done all that I can today to pass on everything that I know to the next generation of firemen, right? I'm not talking millennials, Z, Y, whatever we're on now, but have I done everything I can to pass on my knowledge to the next generation of firemen to make them better?
Yeah.
Have I done everything in my power to pass on the culture of citizens first, right? Have I done everything in my power to make sure that everyone understands that the most important person on the fire scene is the citizen? Have I done everything I can to make sure that everybody loves the job like I love it? Have I taught them? Have I mentored them? Have I been the fireman that I took the oath to be? And that's what I want people to do. That's what I want people to remember and think, because at the end of the day, your 20 years, your 25 years, your 30 years, however long you're going to work, they're going to go by like that.
Yeah.
I mean, you got 19 years in. I hit a fire station 20 years ago as a junior volunteer member, and now I'm a battalion chief, almost 21. June 9th, it'll be 21 years ago that I hit the fire station.
Yeah.
Bro, it went by like that.
Yep. Absolutely.
And so then I look back and I'm like, what have I done over the last 20 years to make the job better? And, I would like to think I've done quite a few good things, but I also know that there was hundreds of missed opportunities, hundreds.
Yep. Absolutely.
And I don't want that anymore. And I don't want that
Yeah.
for anybody else out there, because these young kids need us. I want to know that if God blessed my son and he wants to be a fireman, oh man, boy, bring a tear to my eye if he walked through the fire station. But if he ever wants to be a fireman, I hope that there's some old, crusty, salty man sitting in the corner that's going to take him under his wing and teach him.
Yeah.
And I hope that there's going to be somebody then, right, that looks down at himself at night when he lays in bed and says, did I do everything I could for Luke Johnson? Have I shown him everything I need to show him? Have I passed that passion down? Have I made sure he understands that citizens are first? Have I trained him so that he's prepared to go to these fires and give every chance he can to these citizens to live, and to himself to get out of the fire? And that's the one thing, man, that if over this last hour and a half that we talked, if anybody can take anything, just take these last few seconds that I just said and let that sink in and ask yourself those questions at night.
Absolutely. It goes back to the golden rule. If you would hope that somebody gives that respect and that love to you. So let's do it to them. Let's start passing that out. So I love
Absolutely.
it. Definitely have loved our conversation. I like you said, I feel like we are very close-minded. I think we get each other pretty well. So
Absolutely.
definitely look forward to building a relationship off of this and keeping in contact with you, because I'm very excited where we can help each other go. So thank you very much.
Yes, sir. You're very welcome. I thank you for the opportunity to be on the show, man. I really enjoyed it, and maybe we can get back together on here one day.
Absolutely. Sounds great. So until next time, hope everybody out there gained as much as I did. Hope it adds some value to your life, because I know it did mine. So thank you for joining us today. Look forward to having you back on next week. And until then, stay humble and do work.